The Somali vetting issue, or the Somali question, has refused to go away. And the reason for this is easy to see. Most Kenyans are terrified. All that Kenyans can think about are past terror attacks within the borders of Kenya, which in our entire history, since the birth of our nation, have come from the Somali side. And therefore, in many ways, you cannot blame Kenyans for being paranoid. Indeed, this very controversial issue also brings back memories in my life of trauma. When I was very young and my dad was stationed in Isiolo, one night shifters or shifter bandits invaded the town. And they ended up surrounding the house where we lived. And very fortunately, security personnel who were stationed right next door responded before they could come inside the house. But I spent that night inside a cupboard where my mother put me and my kid brother. And I fell asleep with the sound of gunfire echoing through the night. And it is interesting that I read in history books that there was a ceasefire over the shifter war that happened in 1967. But this incident that happened to me was definitely after 1967, around 1969. And even today, when my memory is jogged, I can still smell the vomit from my kid brother. We're both terrified, but people react differently. I can still smell the vomit of my kid brother inside that cramped wardrobe. I just thought I would bring that up because on my show today, I'm going to go in bare knuckles, speak the brutal truth and nothing but the truth over this very controversial, highly sensitive issue. And it is not lost to me that I have many, many faithful subscribers here from the Somali community. And my hope and prayer today is that they are mature enough to be able to look at this issue, while placing emotions aside in order to arrive at the truth. And please, let us not be naive about anything. It is crystal clear that President William Samoei Ruto made a deal with the Somali community before he was elected president. Indeed, when this latest drama came up of extra vetting in the northern frontier districts being abolished, the truth is, it did not take analysts by surprise. I mean, many top analysts have been talking about this issue for a very long time. I produced a video on this channel over a year ago. Bottom line, many people knew it was happening a long time ago, as early as the year 2022, after the elections. Now, when you make a deal, the nature of a deal is that I give you something and you give me something in return. It is no secret that Kenyan Somalis, and even beyond, have given President Ruto a lot of support. And I want to surprise most of you. Let me ask you a question. Who was the biggest supporter, financially, of William Samoei Ruto's presidential campaign? Can you answer that question? It was the Kenyan Somali community. Now, in this deal, President Ruto is obviously going to get something. And the Kenyans of Somali origin are also going to get something. And please don't be naive to believe that it stops with this no vetting in the northern frontier districts for IDs and passports. Don't be that naive. So, where does it stop? Stick with me to get the shell-shocking answer to that question. And as usual, in order to totally understand, let us start this story at the beginning, which was shortly before Kenya won her independence from Her Majesty's government. Shortly before that, inhabitants of the northern frontier district of Kenya had been promised something by the colonial government. They had been promised that there would be one nation with neighboring Somalia. In other words, a unified Somalia, including our northern frontier district. And you know, when a Brit tells you, I have given you my word, you don't need a contract. It is a done deal. But in this instance, this I have given you my word from the Brits, something went terribly wrong. And when Kenya attained her independence, Jomo Kenyatta and Tom Mboya, the two chief negotiators for Kenya at Lancaster House, insisted that they wanted the Northern Frontier District to be part of the brand new country called Kenya. And so the Brits had to go back on their word. And there was an immediate response from the Somali community. They resisted. Yeah, that's what the shifter war was all about. And the truth is, over the years, over the decades, a lot of Kenyan blood has been poured over this issue. We have lost many, many lives. And now I believe you can begin to understand why Kenyan Defense Forces being inside Somalia can be such a sensitive issue to the country called Somalia. And now we must ask ourselves that critical question. Did the dream of a unified Somalia die? Did it? Or is it still very much alive? Now let's go to the United States of America briefly in our effort to answer that question. Now, there is an American congresswoman of Somali origin called Ilhan Omar. She belongs to the Democratic Party. Ilhan Omar visited Kenya in December 2022, and she got a private audience with President William Samoei Ruto. Now, I wonder what they discussed. What were the issues on the table? Anyway, hold your horses. By the way, Ilhan Omar has quite a history with Kenya. Before she went to the US, she called Kenya home. She lived for many years, and in fact she got her early education at the Dadaab refugee camp. Yeah, that is in Garissa County. She and her family fled to Kenya from Somalia in 1991. She was only 8 years old then. And the rest is history. You know, there is some magic about the country called Kenya. I mean, the people who step on Kenyan soil, they go to greater things. Indeed, as we speak, there are many, many people who have gone through these refugee camps who are doing great things all over the world. I mean, what were you doing in 1991? Can you remember? And where are you now? Yeah? Ilhan Omar was here for many years after 1991. And now she has ended up being an international trailblazer. But let us stay on point. I'll come back to that towards the tail end of my show today. The hidden magic of the country called Kenya. Something for you to look forward to. Now, the reason why I've brought up Ilhan Omar is because of her many controversial statements, some of which have gotten her into political trouble in the United States of America. And many times the Democratic Party and those people surrounding her, handlers, have told us she was misquoted. Including this time when she talked about, wait for this one, occupied Somali land within neighboring Kenya and Ethiopia. Eh? Oh yes. And so I need to ask again, is the dream of a unified Somalia dead and buried? Or is it still very much alive? Now, I think with the benefit of hindsight, Jomo Kenyatta and Tom Mboya made a grave error, a very big mistake, that the country called Kenya has very dearly paid for over the decades. And indeed, we are still paying for it. However, the reality is that all that is now water under the bridge. And the true position under our constitution is that every single Kenyan Somalian within our borders is a Kenyan and deserves the full rights of a Kenyan under our constitution. And we need to face another terrible truth. Since the birth of the nation called Kenya, since independence, our Kenyan brothers of Somali origin have been treated very shabbily, very shoddily by the government of Kenya. That is the truth. There's even been a lot of discrimination against them. Yeah? In my opinion, the question of allegiance, whether to Kenya or Somalia, is a separate issue, a separate subject, topic, that should be discussed separately. Although I very strongly agree that people need to make a decision, a very clear one, of where they belong. I mean, it is very disturbing when we have elections in Somalia and there are wild celebrations in Isili, Nairobi. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. And in many ways, I believe this is a problem of tribalism. And just like other communities who want to continue to embrace tribalism, this is the time for Kenyan Somalis to rise above that, to rise above tribalism, and take their place as Kenyans. That is, those who want to be Kenyans. Fascinatingly, I believe some Americans have exactly the same problem with Ilhan Omar. Some of the controversial remarks she has made has raised this issue to the surface. Bottom line, while nobody should take lightly the rights of our fellow Kenyans from the Somali tribe, it is also very important that our brothers and sisters from the Somali community should also take the security of their nation called Kenya very seriously. They should not take it lightly. And in my opinion, it should really worry Kenyans when experts like Governor George Natembeya comes out and warns us this is dangerous for the security of the country, because the man is a security expert. He worked in the top echelons of our security sector before he became a governor. Can you ignore what experts are telling you? Can you? To sum it all up, this is why I'm convinced that this recent decision by President Ruto is something that will come back to haunt him big time. Oh, very big time. Especially when so many people can see very clearly that it is a selfish decision made for selfish gain. That is what it really is. Because what is being looked for here are votes for the year 2027. But then the country of Kenya is much more important than votes for one general election. It is much more important than the political ambitions of one Kenyan. Wouldn't you agree with me? You know you can make a deal, and then somebody can look at you and tell you in the face, my friend, you're playing with fire. Okay? And I believe this is the exact situation here. Now, on to the magic of Kenya. Very many individuals who have once called Kenya home have moved on to do great things. Now, in front of your screens right now, you can see the photographs of some of these individuals. Many of them were based at the Dadaab refugee camp, which is in Garissa County. But others were also based at Kakuma, which is in Turkana County. And many of them received a foundational education in the country called Kenya. I mean, Kenya has even produced a seed that has ended up becoming the President of the United States of America. Barack Obama, who has his roots in Kogelo. Kogelo is in which country? It is in Kenya. Which other African country has done the same? Maybe I missed it. Which one? Kenya is a covenant country. Kenya is a very special country. Usione simba imenyeshewa ukadhani ni umbwa. Don't see a lion which is drenched in the rain, very hungry, starving, and you make the fatal mistake of thinking it is a domestic dog. The consequences could be fatal. Right now in our history, Kenya may be that lion, rained on, hungry, desperate. But don't mistake that country called Kenya for a domestic dog. And therefore, if I was a Kenyan of Somali origin, if it was me, I would choose without hesitation to totally belong to Kenya. Heart, mind, spirit, everything. Now, very quickly before I go, a reminder of my very latest special report. It is highly sensitive because it goes very deep into the corridors of power, behind the scenes where information rarely trickles out. And what I found for this special report will shock you to your bones. Hey, my friends, I am not exaggerating. Naturally, I cannot give you so much detail here. But the long and short of it is that it reveals how the Ruto presidency is crumbling on the inside. There are things which are happening on the inside which are not good for this presidency. There is isolation. People fear to approach Ruto these days, and for a very good reason that will shock you to your bones. Now you can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 3,999 or $31, you can have this highly sensitive special report pop in your inbox. Now, because of the sensitivity of this information, naturally, this will not go out to too many people, and therefore the slots are limited. So please move with speed in case you're interested, and get yourself this information that, in my opinion, will enable you to predict very accurately how long the Ruto presidency will last or not. And you'll also be able to understand so many other things because of this information, including the reason why the abductions cannot stop. You know, the method of abductions has changed in recent times. These days it's done chini ya maji. This shell-shocking information will tell you why the abductions cannot stop. And I'm sure you will totally understand. You will totally get it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.